I am Soundwave. I am here to help you, my liege.
If it works. Oh, there you go. We have visuals.
I was puppeteering.
Visuals are good.
Welcome, friends and fans, to another edition of GalaxyCon Live, where we are bringing the convention experience directly to you. And today, we are going back to Cybertron with two amazing actors from Transformers Generation 1 and beyond. So now, let's activate the space bridge, power up those Energon cubes, and bring them out. Our first guest is an actor, comedian, and elder statesman of voice acting, whose incredibly diverse body of work includes Futurama, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, The Real Ghostbusters, Wonderbug, which tells you how old I am, and of course, Scooby-Doo. Today, though, he joins us to discuss giving voice to the following Generation 1 characters. First, the Autobots, Blades, Chrome Dome, Groove, Wheelie, Trailbreaker, Mirage, Superion of the Aerobots, and Dinobot Sludge. And now the Decepticons, Skywarp, Constructicon Mixmaster, Rumble, Frenzy, Ravage, and of course their daddy, Big Soundwave himself, Galvatron, and of course Mr. Peace Through Tyranny himself, Megatron. Please welcome Frank Welker.
Thank you, Patty. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Glad to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I feel so good after that wonderful introduction you gave me. I would like to meet myself.
Yeah. Well, you have been on my list for years. I have been so wanting to host you, and I hope I could do it again in the future because there's so much Saturday morning and live action stuff going on back to this, in your live action work. I just love to talk about. I mean, for crying out loud, myself and GalaxyCon founder Mike Broder and I, we're both huge fans of Zorro the Gay Blade, which you did the introduction.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow. You've done your research.
Oh, no, I lived through it all. I lived through it all. But again, absolutely, thank you for joining us here. And I will say this much because it is right behind you, Scooby-Doo. It has gone on and on and on and on and on. And just real quick, then, what's been your favorite part of being part of the Scooby-Doo legacy?
Well, to have a show in Hollywood last, more than a couple of seasons is always a thrill. And then when you find a show that will last over 50 years, it's just like crazy. So I don't know. I think the longevity of the show, the surprise at how long that show has gone on, and the people obviously that I've met through the time. I mean, the different casts, the writers, the directors, the producers, all along this trip through time. I think that's been probably the most memorable thing, is just the people that you meet along the road.
Absolutely.
And so many talented people. And the cast that we have right now with Matt Lillard and Kate Micucci and Gray Delisle, I mean, they are so much fun, and they're the whole new generation. So for me, now I just kind of get to sit back and watch these wonderful, crazy, talented kids, I call them, misbehave during our sessions, and it's a real treat. So it's really hard to say. It's just all fun, but probably the people along the way.
Absolutely. And speaking of talented people, that certainly sums up our next guest. He is an actor who's also a incredible body of work, which includes Voltron, Defender of the Universe, Filmation's Ghostbusters, which was, of course, was different from The Real Ghostbusters, Pirates of Darkwater, an incredibly undervalued series, and of course, Dungeons & Dragons, one of my all-time favorites. Today, though, he joins us to discuss giving voice to the following G1 characters. First, the Decepticons, Nightstick, Slugslinger, and Wingspan. And then the Autobots, Protectobot Streetwise, Ironhide, the Veteran, and, of course, our eternal favorite, the voice of Optimus Prime. Please welcome Peter Cullen.
Hi, Patty. How are you? Hi, everybody.
I am well. How are you today, sir?
Hi, Frank.
I'm
doing well. Thank you.
Oh, so good to have you here. Everything is well in your corner of the world?
Absolutely. Well, aside from a few unfortunate little what do we call it today? I mean, we've had Corona, we've had COVID, we've had whatever they all come.
It's
No,
been
we're
a
doing
year.
good. I'm happy to say safe and sound.
Safe is the new awesome.
Really.
In this interesting day and age, and like with Frank, I got to go a little bit with you. I mentioned before, the voice of Avenger, Dungeons and Dragons, in the gaming world and in the evolution of D&D, which has become in the past 10 years a huge juggernaut. It remains an incredibly signature work, and your contribution to it is just fantastic, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind. I appreciate that. That's yeah, thank you. That's nice.
No, it really is, really is. But today, though, we are here to talk about robots. And as always, gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on the GalaxyCon virtual stage. We look forward to the day when the world does get a little back to normal and we can have you back on our stages and get you in front of your fans. In the meantime, though, we're so glad to have you here. And as a fan of the Transformers, thank you both for serving and continuing to lend your talents to these characters, from going back to Generation 1 all the way back to live action films. I just want to say, I think you guys are great actors, and I don't think that appellation is given to you guys as often as you deserve. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, nice of you to say. We appreciate
it.
No problem. So before we get to the next question, I just wanted to ask real quick, for our audience that may not know, how did Transformers begin for each of you? When did you get the call from representation saying there's a new show with robots? You want to go for it,
Frank?
Well, I know Peter and I have talked about this, but I remember when they came out, when the call for that show, actually when I got that call, it was during a time, Peter, remember, that there was so much going on. We had G.I. Joe, and I think that was but there was so much going on that I was surprised to go in, and Wally was so busy. That Wally was our director, Wally Burr, and he was so busy with other shows and stuff. He said, Frank, because there's a sign that says, pick 3, but he said, Frank, just pick some and come on in and do them, So naturally, I picked 10. And took them all in, and he's so busy, he doesn't even know that I'm just going on and on and on and on and on. And
3 was the amount they could squeeze an actor for in those days per episode.
I think that's right. I think it was maybe 3. It was right around the time when that changed, where before you could do well, I guess just as many characters as they wanted you to do for a scale session fee. But then that changed around that period of time because everybody got so busy, and then the actors were doing way too many characters per, one guy would be doing, like Peter would do 10 characters and John Billington would do 1, and they'd get the same check.
Yeah.
But I got parking in addition to that. So just kidding. Peter always had parking. But
Here we go.
So really, it was kind of just out of the blue, and it was during a wonderful Renaissance time of animation. And when I went in and saw all these characters that were completely different than what we'd been doing, I think there was GoBots at Hanna-Barbera where they were doing some shows, but these were so well drawn. The characters were like crazy, scary, and good, and it gave us a whole nother direction to go into to play. And so it was pretty exciting. But that's how I got mine. It was just a general call.
Yeah.
And then I went in and misbehaved.
Certainly. So, Peter, how about you?
Well, a very similar experience, quite frankly, although when my agent told me that they were casting for a new animated series, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Not that I'd had as much experience as Frank, because Frank was and still is the king of animation in Hollywood, as far as I'm concerned, and many other people. Yeah. Yes, Frank. Take it. Don't find that from me. Anyway, we were given the information that this is a new series, a new concept, and Transformers was barely enough explanation to see what we were going to actually do, because we were given the character, a picture of the character, and then what he would transform into. In my case, it was a semi-truck trailer morphing into Optimus Prime, and a very, this is brand new.
Yeah.
This is nothing we had ever seen before. And of course, the leader of the Autobots at the time was about as much information as you got. So he
looks like this. There you go.
Well, they gave a little more than that, but
Okay.
for me, it was a very, very a very poignant time, if I could use a silly word like poignant, because the hero, I always put my brother Larry as the ultimate hero. He was a former Marine, and he had returned from Vietnam, and he was soft-spoken, a leader of men. And I just said, well, this is not going to be a stretch for me. I'm just going to do my brother Larry. Yeah. And so that's what I did. I just impersonated my brother Larry in this small little booth, and not to know what the conclusion would be until, several days later, if not a week or two. I can't remember. But that's how it happened for me. And I didn't audition for any other characters. I don't remember auditioning for. Oh, yes, I did. I did Ironhide in that audition as well.
Okay.
And I think I had just seen an old movie with Chill Wills, a character actor at the time, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, a great actor. And he was bigger than life and very, very tall, and kind of like this here, and I just seen him that night, the night prior, and his voice just stuck in my ear, and I saw the picture of Ironhide, and the description of him, takes no guff, gonna kick butt and do all this stuff, and then Chill Wills just kind of came right out of me. So it was a lucky audition. I'm sure if I hadn't nailed it, I probably would have been not considered for Prime. I don't know, but
Ironhide is a great secondary character. The grizzled old veteran, and again, both you gentlemen just gave these characters far more depth than I think anyone might have been expecting for a cartoon at the time. And again, like Frank said earlier, there was a really good renaissance going on. Saturday morning was hit a good stride, but there was the syndication shows that were really starting to go out in the independent markets, and what boom years they really were.
Well, yeah. Let me just add, when I worked with Frank on this, when we were all together doing the first recording, there was a real charge in the room. We all worked together, perhaps 10 or 12 of us, all in a row facing the glass with the director on the other side of the glass. So all these microphones, and we're all staring at this glass. And when we started to, get away from that, hi, how are you doing? What's your when was your blah, blah, blah? All right, blah, 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 take one. And there was a real excitement of energy as we started hearing the other actors playing the other characters. And we had no idea, because how do you know until something comes to life? Do you really understand it? Yeah. And then Frank, I heard his Megatron, and it was inspiring for me, because where did this come from, and other voices as well. It was a very exciting day.
It's funny, Peter. I hadn't heard you really talk about it in that way before, and you're right. The sessions where we had such a good group of actors, but the whole room was full. I mean, we'd have that sometimes. We'd have maybe 12 people.
Yeah, as many as 12.
Average around 8 to 10, and then sometimes 12. and Scatman Crothers.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and just it was fun to go,
Yeah.
until you got into some of the growling group things that you do over and over again. It
Yeah.
was painful, for our characters because we're doing this.
Yeah. That's level 1. Now level 2.
Yeah, level 2. You do multiple levels and faster. So
That's where you record over what you just did, and they ask you to record again.
Yeah.
If you're doing a crowd scene, well, you start with 12 people, then now you have 24, and then you get 48. But
the huge sounds that you
went on forever.
Out of that, But fortunately, and what Wally did, which was really smart, is he put Peter and I next to each other most of the time until we started causing trouble. Then he split us up. But
oh, really? Would you care to give us an example?
Oh, come on.
Well, Peter,
you go on forever with
right
that.
now. You look at his face and you hear his laughter, and there's nothing better. To me, that's golden. If I can make Peter smile or laugh, that's a bar of gold. And in a session, it's even better because I can get him in trouble. So because Peter's a very serious actor in the studio. I mean, very fun, very nice, but he doesn't like to mess around and mess somebody else up or take too much time. He likes to do his job professional. That's the word I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Peter's a professional. Me, and not so much. But so Peter would be into, and I'd usually wait till he was in a really serious line, was some kind of very deep speech, and he'd give these beautiful long speeches to his group. I just yell at mine, but Peter would have the "You came from the earth, and the earth is you, and your shoes
very good.
Beautiful stuff, though, seriously. So I'd wait till he's right in the middle of it, and then if he'd just give me a slight breath, I go, or some kind of little fly, just enough so that nobody else could hear it but Peter. And he was gone. He was gone.
I would be
so easy because he'd try, just like when you're in the library and you're trying to be quiet. So Peter would go, well, that was like 1,000,000 gold bars right there.
Or if I was drinking some water, he would always time it so that when I took a thing of water, a gulp of water, he would do his thing
out his nose. But we were very serious most of the
time.
They're
a rotten kid.
Awesome. I just have one more quick one. I've always been a little curious about this. Did you guys record Transformers and then do your stint on GoBots, or was GoBots first? I haven't really been able to quite figure that out. I guess really the big question is, did one of those teams give you any guff or pushback about working for the other show?
I wasn't it during?
Was it simultaneous?
Wasn't it during? I'll leave this question up for the professionals.
Yeah,
fair.
Because a lot of this just goes, especially for me, because I wasn't in the show as long as Frank. But so Frank, I'm depending upon you to answer this question. I'm going to pass on that one.
No worries.
I can't even find my house. No, I kind of vaguely remember, as Peter does, that they may have been at the same time or pretty close to it, but I don't remember any actual kickback, again, because we were all so busy.
Yeah,
even the studios. I mean, they were pushed to get product done, so I think everybody was just happy to get in and do a job and it was great for everybody. But that actually led to the reason that we could do, I think it was 4 hours when we first started. In fact, it was during Transformers, we could do a full day. But guys like Peter and some of the rest of us, we had multiple shows we had to do. So it was up to the the pleasure of the director to let you out or not, and you hope that you could get out.
Yeah.
And but you could have I think maybe 5 shows or 6 shows in a day. And
Wow.
each director wants you to stay there for a minimum of 4 or 5 hours. Well, you can see the math doesn't work. So
Yeah.
we finally got the studios to kind of cooperate with each other, but then the guild came in and we did the 4 hours, and that helped us a lot because you're in the middle of a session and usually you would go in and you would say, look, I'm going to have to leave at I got a thing over, and they go, oh, okay, no problem. But then they'd forget, and right in the middle of the session you'd have to go, I got to leave, and it was just ugh. But anyhow, it was a wonderful time, and that if that was the worst of our problem, it wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely true. Well, yeah, and again, as an equity guy, thank goodness for our unions, and
Really?
absolutely that. So I think we are good to go on audience questions. So I'll ask Janelle to roll our first one, and this is going to come from Peter, who wants to know, when you were first cast as your characters, did you have any idea how iconic they would become? And I'll follow this up on it too. Maybe afterwards, when did you begin to realize how iconic the characters had become?
It's a good question because, especially in my case, I was hired in 1984 and I was killed off in 1986. So in such a short period of time, you begin to wonder, with the show going on and not stopping, and this goes on for years. So in my case, I was saying, boy, what did I do wrong? You can't have much of a popularity contest going here. I must suck, But we didn't have any feedback in those days. There was no internet. There was none of that stuff, and we didn't get fan mail. I know fan mail was written, but we never received any. So there was no, as I use the word thermometer. I mean, there was no thermometer to judge back in those days, and in my case, I was stunned. I had never done a death scene before.
And usually you have time to prepare for it, but in this case, we're sitting there reading the script, and Peter goes, "Ow! What?" He says, "Look at page whatever it was."
12, probably. It was so early. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. We were both shocked, but to read about it as you're sitting there, you don't have time to prepare. That was kind of a shock.
Yeah.
Of course, the fans and everybody with brains brought him back immediately. And,
but we didn't know that.
Yeah, we didn't know it.
No, and it's been spoken of before, and for audience that does not know it, the short version was that Hasbro wanted to push more toys, and they thought, well, if we do we kill off the old characters, the kids will be interested in new characters, then they'll buy them. And then that was a bean counter decision, and there's a logic to it. I'll give him that, but not an entertainment-based one, which is somebody who said, hey, guys, guess what? If you kill off the favorite characters, the fans don't like that. Go figure. And again, I think they corrected as soon as they did. Which again took a while, and that wasn't soon enough for both of us. But again, in those pre-internet days, though, the word got up to the top. So, and you've both been going strong with these characters, and I'll even go on record to say, yeah, I do prefer Megatron over Galvatron. I just cooler design, everything. I'm an old school G1 fan, but again, anybody out there likes us too, and anyone who likes the motion pictures, and that's the wonderful thing about Transformers. There's all these, like Scooby-Doo, there's so many permutations, and everybody can have their favorite one, and everybody can, it's a big Whitman sampler, I call it, Some people like the whole box. Some people like cherry cordial. Yeah. Ooh, give me the lime cream. So, Peter, thank you. It was a great question to start us off with. And what do we have next? And from Josh, Oh, do you ever think in your Transformers voices? Or any of your other cartoon voices? Do you ever think in any of them?
Frank, what do you've got thousands of these things. I've only got a few, but
Well, I hear a lot of voices, and I'm told that's not a good thing. Actually, that is one of the coolest questions. I don't think I've
it's a great question
before, and I'm trying not to be honest and think exactly how to answer that, because I think I do when I read a script, and if I'm reading the characters and reading the scripts, I'm hearing the sound. So I don't know if I'm necessarily thinking in the character. I don't know how you would define that, but I know that I do hear myself reading as Megatron or something if I'm reading along. But if I was just sitting, having a cigar and just finishing watching the Broncos play, very disappointed, by the way, I don't know if I would be thinking as Megatron. But that's a really cool question.
Yeah, it is.
You're a stogie man? I'll send you some of mine.
Thank you. All righty.
I would be very appreciative. And if you can do something with the Broncos, I'd be even happier.
I don't know. I'll do my best. I'll make a few calls. I know a guy in Denver owes me a favor. Let's see what.
Hey, that's pretty good there. You do that
Yeah.
for a living?
Sometimes a little bit.
Yeah, you ought to charge for that. You know what I mean? You get out there.
Wait, you can get paid for doing voices? I thought you guys did it for the fame.
Yeah, well, sometimes we do it for the stogies, right?
Yeah.
Hey. Josh, thank you. That was a solid one.
Really solid question.
What do we have next? And this comes from Michelle. How has the voice acting process changed since you started? And it certainly has. Technology-wise, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, when I first started, I was aware of Frank Welker and others. I certainly was aware of Mel Blanc. And when I joined in the working area of my career, the voiceover working area, I was impressed all the time by the quality of the actors. They were real actors, but they did more than one voice. And then in my lifetime, in my career as a recording artist, in the sense of multiple voice, I worked with guys that could do 10 or 15, 20 voices. And then it started to turn out there's only a guy could do one or two voices, and get to the point where a guy was only hired to just do his voice, So I noticed that slide over a period of, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years, where it wasn't as fun anymore. You could walk into a studio and be with 12 people and they're only doing one voice. So it was like a television show. It wasn't really doing a cartoon.
See that?
Did that answer the question?
No, that was your perspective.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Frank, how about you?
And I'm sticking to it.
Right. You got it.
I agree with what Peter said, and also to your point about the technical side is I approach it a little bit differently. But when we first were doing animation shows back, like when we first started doing Transformers, you pretty much would do a show as a full cast, and it was a lot of fun just because you're actors having fun and being a family, but also you had a lot of interplay and in acting. So you're reading off each other. Like Peter and I think, we really do the best when we're doing Optimus and Megatron working together, because we just feed off each other and spit on each other too a lot. Just one of the hazards of the business. But that kind of tandem acting is so much fun, and it gives you a lot of energy nowadays. And this has been the last few years, and I think Peter will agree with me that a lot of our sessions we record by ourselves. And even when we do Scooby-Doo, they would do like the core cast, the 4 members, if we're lucky, because everybody's so busy in that group that very rarely do we even have the 4 of us as a core. But we would never work with our guest stars or anything. So you kind of, to me, that's, I think it certainly works, and for expediency's sake, it's also really good. But for the sheer power of acting and feeding off of one another, I kind of miss the days when we're in a big room with 12 crazy people.
Yeah, I spoke to Andrea Romano recently, and she talked about how she really tried to keep the troop style in the DC work and everything else. And yeah, if there's footage of either you guys in action or any of those group recordings, I would love to see them. I know there's recordings, obviously, but it'd be fun to see some if somebody ran some footage back then.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody did. That would be really interesting to see it and to find out. Yeah.
And of course, you guys were stymied a little bit by you were working off tape. You were okay, let's do it again.
Wow, that's right.
Take 2. All right, let's do it again. Indeed. So,
there he goes.
Yeah, those were the days. So yeah, that's a big change. Obviously, I had forgotten about that too. Yeah, and the tape usually, like you're doing those big old tapes,
3/4 inch. Yeah.
And they'd move those big old wheels and So that's all. All that digital stuff. That's all new. So
now just look at the dots.
Much faster. Much faster.
Which means they get more work out of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, indeed. So, Michelle, thank you. That was a great question.
Great question, Michelle.
Yeah,
really good.
Hey, what do we have next? From Roz. How do you keep from straining your voice?
Leaving the studio? No. Excuse me. That really does kind of come down to kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier about using your voice. Well, I guess we didn't really talk about that part of it, but in the technique of voice acting, you learn real quick, hopefully, you learn how to scream, you learn how to talk loud, talk soft by using the mic. And for an example, sound wave. If I do sound wave here,
I am Soundwave.
Doesn't sound much, but if I move in on the mic, I don't know if this will work or not. But
I am Soundwave. I am here to help you, my liege.
I don't know if it works. Oh, there it is. We have visuals.
I was puppeteering.
Visuals are good. But and then also, technically, obviously, they fool with some of your characters to make them bigger or scratchy or whatever. But it is technique, and I think moving in on the mic and knowing exactly how to pitch your voice. And then Peter can talk to that too, because Optimus Prime, when he does that, he's not projecting or yelling or anything. And that voice, when he moves in and does whatever he does, paint comes off the wall. And that's just not only good acting, but technique. So,
lead paint?
lead paint. No, just regular paint. We don't want any of that bad stuff, mercury and all. No.
Because then the asbestos starts falling out.
Yeah, but Roz, I would say it just is a matter of technique and learning how to manipulate your voice and how to work the microphone. Peter?
Yeah, well, you work the microphone like nobody else I know. I mean, I don't really work the microphone that much the way you do. I guess it was the voice. I studied voice with an incredible opera coach back in Canada, in Montreal. His name was Bernard Diamant. And he was a French opera coach. And he taught, helped and coached all these famous opera singers. And he gave me a little bit of a clues to how the head and the chest and your air works, and the resonances in your pockets in your head, how you can make them vibrate, and your chest resonance, how you can get lower, and the use of air in your lungs, how you can force them out through your abdominal muscles by pushing it through, just much like a musical instrument. And although I never perfected it by any means, but it certainly helped to know and to apply it as I could, as best I could. It did, in fact, enhance a lot of the sounds that I came up with. And I could, go a little further than and longer, except for one movie that I did, which was one of the King Kong movies, and I was King Kong, and I was also Mrs. Kong, and I was also Baby Kong, and that wore on me. I mean, shut up, Frank.
Talk about a guy who's conflicted, huh? That is confliction.
Yeah. I did 11 reels of that, and then that little vibe, then that Mrs. Kong, said, "Oh, Archie."
Would you consider that like the most challenging voice you ever had to do?
Well, it was the most grueling. I mean, I coughed blood after that that session, and then soon after that, I've told this story a lot. But soon after that, I think it was like 5 days later, 20th Century called me to do to come in and read for this part of The Predator, the Arnold Schwarzenegger film at 20th, and I said, no, I'm not doing any monsters anymore. He said, no, you got it. They insisted that I come down and do it. And they wouldn't show me what the character looked like. And from at the beginning of that, so I got to get out of here, because there's no point in me coming up with a voice if I can't see what I'm doing, or know what it looks like. And so they relented, and the director was getting really annoyed with me because I really didn't care, because I already expressed the fact that I didn't want to be there, but they insisted. But the thing was, I was at 20th Century, and we were in a sound stage where I looked up, and the ceiling goes on forever. And how many great movies had been shot in there. I was, really turned on. I was electrified, because like Clark Gable could have been in there, and all these great famous actors. And here I was, and they want me to audition to a microphone that's about 16 feet up in the air, and I don't want to ruin my voice, because it's already ruined. So, but I figured I could come up with a sound if they show me what it looks like. So they finally relented and showed me, and they went to the very end of the movie, and where he takes off the helmet, and it's just mouth that's doing all this stuff.
You are one ugly motherfucker.
Yeah, that was the story. It hasn't changed, but it looked like an upside down horseshoe crab on the beach back in Massachusetts, in Situate, Mass. And there it was, with bubbles coming out of it, from the sun and the seaweed and everything else.
Yeah, Stan Winston knocked it out of the park with that design.
And that was that. So coming up with that, and the director was behind me, and he's throwing his paper down because he can't hear what I'm doing. And I'd ask the microphone to come right down to here. So it's like this. And it's normally up there 16 feet. So he started getting huffy and puffy, and the sound booth way up in the back said, you better come up here and hear this. Yeah, you get up here. So he went up there, and this very angry or upset director went up huffy puffy up the stairs, and about 3 minutes later he comes prancing down. He says, well, how are you doing? Let's hey, let's work. We're going to work on this. Let's go. Okay, let's go. I went, wow. They bought it.
Art directors funny like that.
There.
They
got a lot on their mind.
They go from hate to love in one take.
Well, but Dan, again, back to our technique, that was all, Peter recognizing, what he needs to do, and the director hadn't a clue. So if he hadn't have done his thing,
It's
Frank.
funny. Yeah, it's true, Frank. I see you do this all the time. I mean, you do it with sounds that literally floor me. He'll do an elevator. He'll do a hydraulic lift. He'll do things like this just as I'm about to speak. And
Frank,
where did that come from?
Frank, is there a voice you can recall that you'd be perfectly happy to never have to do again?
Well, yeah, certainly a King Kong.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there have been others. Yeah, there's been a lot. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think probably. Actually, I wouldn't mind doing it again, but I would have to do it in shorter periods of time. But I did a picture called Species. This was, I think they did a sequel too, but I just did
several. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was really, really fun because I worked with the director and like Peter in a big sound studio. And he was really so respectful of me and treated me as an actor and also as somebody who could get hurt, if you're not careful with him. So, I mean, a lot like Leonard Nimoy, when I worked on a picture too, he was just so respectful of your voice. And, but anyhow, back to the Species. So I actually worked on that picture probably 3 consecutive days because like Peter, once I got in there, he wanted me to do basically everything, because he started showing. He said, "Could you do the creature lays eggs on this train, and the eggs are on the train and are coming into town. Is there any kind of sound you could make for the eggs?" And as they're percolating, all that stuff. So that was really fun. I said, well, this is great.
Heartbeat. You threw in a heartbeat.
That's in a heartbeat. So then, and I'd say, well, can we go back over that and then I'll add another layer, and it was just fun. And then there was, of course, the torture part, which was very hard, is when in her death scene where she burns to death, and then all of her eggs and things and different babies or whatever, but I had to do all the screams and moans for these creatures burning. So that was really, really hard. But the one that really got me on that is the director said, Frank, there's a scene where Syl, and the whole premise was she's come down from outer space and searches out the most masculine, perfect male and wants to mate with him. That was the whole key. And she looks like, and she was a model from New York who was, this I think was her first film. But once she's mated with the fella, then she's got to eliminate him. So he said, in this scene, Syl eliminates her male companion, and we need a sound. And I said, oh, okay. He says, now she sticks her tongue in his mouth and out the back of his neck.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm sorry, say again? Well, let me just show you. So she kisses him, and then she kills him by penetrating his throat and out. It's disgusting, but it was hysterical at the same time. So I had to come up with a sound for that, and many more. So, I mean, that was a lot of fun, even though it was really painful. So that very long story was my answer, which is I would love to do it again, but not in much shorter periods of time. That was long.
No worries, Roz. Thank you for that question. And GalaxyCon viewers, this has been my time with the voices of the Transformers. Gentlemen, any final words for our audience before we go?
Well, I never step on another actor when they're trying to talk, like I just did with Peter. Now, I just want to say thank you so much for your support throughout the years, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be sitting here, especially me. So thank you so much. Peter is always going to work, and he's always going to be a Transformer, but you pulled it out for me, and thanks for all your support throughout the years.
Thank you. So, Peter, any final things for our audience before we go?
Any what?
Any final words for our audience before we go?
Yeah, lots of love. Love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, fellas. Gentlemen, it's my absolute pleasure to serve you today. Thank you for joining us at the GalaxyCon virtual stage. Thank you to our audience for joining us, and thank you for those great questions. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care, and please keep washing those hands.